I'd like to do one shout out, but I want to thank this company for giving me the best thing that ever happened to me, and that was my wife.
Oh, that's Cindy Graves. Cindy has been an integral part. She's AR. She's highly integral to what we do here. She is the best thing that's ever happened to you, not vice versa.
And I want to throw in something here. Policy ever changes where you're not allowed to have a wife and a husband combination. It was nice working with you, Junior.
I know. That's what everybody tells me. That's what everybody tells me.
Welcome to Bottled Up. I am your host, Andrew Allen, and on this episode, we are talking with two Allen Beverages pros and legends, Charles Duggan and Junior Estes Graves, to dig into how work ethic, communication, and personal relationships have changed in the beverage industry. Join us as we celebrate over 70 years of combined experience and get ready for some funny, heartwarming stories from the truck and the warehouse, as well as some wisdom, laughter, and nostalgia on this Allen Beverages Tales from the Trenches special episode of Bottled Up. Welcome to today's episode of Bottled Up. Today I have two very special guests on the show today, Mr. Charles Duggan and Mr. Junior Estes Graves. Thank y'all for coming on the show today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I want to kind of get into a little bit of the history that is sitting on this show with us right now. Between these two gentlemen, there's probably over 70 years of soft drink experience on the show, not including myself. And I want to kind of get into a little bit of the history of you guys starting with this company. And, you know, you've worked under my grandfather, you've worked under my dad, and now you've worked under me. And, you know, I want to kind of go into when you guys started and talk about that a little bit. So let's go ahead and start with Charles. Charles, what year did you start, and what was your first job coming in to Allen Beverages?
First year, I think it was in 1982. And I came in as a route driver because I had experience working with Coors as a route driver. And I had the Picayune route, which consists of Picayune, Poplarville, and Wiggins. You did two days in Picayune, 2 days in Wiggins, and 1 day in Poplarville.
Okay. So when you started, Charles, kind of give me a little bit of an idea of what it was like when you got on the route. I know kind of what we do nowadays with training guys on routes. Give me a little bit of an insight, and the listener a little bit of insight on what it was like to just start out fresh on a route, and kind of how long they gave you to learn the route and basically the ins and outs of that.
Well, when I started, my supervisor was Don Marsh, and he rode with me. And Don, he gave me 1 day in Picayune, showed me how to run the route, and then a day in Poplarville, showed me how to run the route. And then the third day, I went to Wiggins, and he showed me the route. And then the instruction I got from them, back then we didn't have cell phones or nothing. You had a problem, you put a dime in the machine and you call somebody. So his instruction was, when you get to the first stop, ask that customer where the second stop was, and then go on from that away. So what you do is you get to your first stop, and then you'd work the stop and say, okay, well, do you know where so-and-so stop is? And they'll give you direction. Do you go? And then that's how you found your route around once you did it.
This is all pre-GPS,
Everything.
Yeah. It's all word of mouth. People are leaving notes for you. I know there's one story about how you found out that your wife was having one of your sons, is that they would have to call a store that they thought you were at, depending upon the time of day. And if you weren't there, they would call the next store.
That's exactly how they used to do it. If you had an emergency, they knew how you ran your route, because it was, you were scheduled how to run it. And then they knew about what time you would be in that certain area. And you also did, back in those days, you checked in. You would call a certain time of the day, like at noon, you would call and say, hey, I'm at this stop. Is there any messages for me? And then that's how you'd get your messages and stuff.
Yeah, a lot's changed since then. So you started in 1982, Charles, and you've been with the company since then. So that's 40 years, 42 years, basically.
40. Yeah. How it happened, though, is I worked with Coors first, and then I left and came to Pepsi. And so I've been in the business for about 40 years total.
Yeah, that's a long time, man. Well, Junior, let's talk a little bit about your beginnings with Allen Beverages. You have been you're a legend in the business. You started under my grandfather. You know, some of the history here for the listener is, you know, Junior, my grandfather co-signed on Junior's first car when he was younger. That's how far back these relationships go. These two gentlemen have known me my entire life. They were probably came to the hospital when I was born. And so Junior, give me a little bit of insight in what year you started and kind of what the atmosphere was like in the business at that time.
I started in 77. I believe I worked here a year or so before that, but we'll forget that about that part. But anyways, we started out, we had returnable bottles. I started out in the warehouse sorting out returnable bottles. When they come in, the truck, they would take them off the truck, bring them in the warehouse at night, and we'd have to come in during the day and sort them all up, get everything ready to go back to the bottling company. I did that for a little while. I used to be your dad's helper.
Yeah.
Way back when Wiggins wasn't even on a route. So every Thursday, me and your dad would load a truck up and we would run Wiggins when he come to the company. It was,
Junior, how old was he when y'all were doing that?
oh my God, Andrew, don't ask me. Well, if it was like in 78, 79.
He's probably 25.
Yeah. Yeah. He was young. He was very young when he come to work here. I mean, you could see the difference in him, you know. He was very young, but yeah, me and him or if a big store called in and had to have an order, me and him got on truck and we took it out. He liked the way I work and then started on a route truck.
What you started out and then you started on a route after you were in the warehouse. How long were you on routes?
6.5 years. Believe it or not, I ran the Picayune, Poplarville, Wiggins route.
So you probably ran that right before Charles took it.
Yeah, I did. Andrew, I went into management about, let's say, 82. Late 81, early 82, and I took over your divisioning department, which was your drink machines, mainly drink machines and coolers. And we had a few restaurants, but nothing like we do now. And I ran that for 9 years. So that's when Charles probably came into the company and all that.
Well, between both of you guys, y'all basically you've been in every department. You've done pretty much every job there is to do at the plant. What was y'all's most favorite position that you had, and what do you wish you could, like, let's say if you could have had the same job for the rest of your life, what would that job be?
Honestly and truly, back then I enjoyed the route truck.
Yeah.
I mean, people were just, you know, I mean, everybody was nice. They treated you well, you know, worked for a good company. You know, that's why I stayed on that Picayune route for so long. It was just nice and I really enjoyed it.
What about you, Charles?
I'd have to say the same thing. The route truck I really enjoyed the route truck because you went out there, you was by yourself most of the time, and you ran your route the way you wanted to run it. You got to know the people. It's a lot different than what it is today. People a lot friendlier, and the country routes was a lot better to run. The city routes were a little tougher, more traffic and everything, but those country routes, it was country people. You always getting fed. They were nicer. I enjoyed the route better.
Yeah, it was a different time back then, though, man. Like, yeah, I spent a little bit of time on trucks too, and underneath Junior. And you know, it's the game has changed. You know, the amount of stops has changed. The amount of package has quadrupled. You know, it's more business than it is social. You know, you still have pockets of what you guys are discussing where you have customers who know you and kind of give you a little bit of a leg up and will help you unload, or every now and then you can tell them you're in a hurry and they'll be willing to put the product up for you. But those stops are a rarity nowadays.
Well, also back then, Andrew, like I had 12-ounce returnable, 16-ounce returnable, 32-ounce returnable, and I think 3 or 4 flavors of 6-pack cans, and that's all we had on our truck.
Yeah, you were driving the trucks that didn't have bays.
Right. When your grandfather bought 5 new trucks, we had 6 routes. And since I was going to Picayune, he was going to leave me in the old truck. The guy that was my boss at the time told him we had to put him in a new truck since he drove so many miles.
Yeah, you're heading up there, man.
I enjoy the business now.
Yeah, what about it?
there was just a time frame, when you start and you go through everything. Like I enjoyed vending vending when I started doing it. You enjoy everything, and then you just get to know everything, and like things have changed, packages, stores, everything's changed about this business. But it's all for the better, I think, but it's just different.
It is different. And I think that the underlying factor of this business is that it's one thing that will not change is that we might be a distributor of beverages, but this is kind of a people business. And, once you kind of wrap your head around, like, they're not just buying your brands, they're buying you, especially if you're a salesman or if you do any kind of sales development or anything like that. They're buying you. A product is coming with you, but they're buying you. So it's all about relationships and developing those relationships. And I think that the amount of time that you guys have been out in this market, consecutively highly benefits this company and also benefits you guys because everybody. A guy who's moved from this store and now manages this store, who's managed this store now, your relationship and kind of your reputation goes with that person no matter what store they're at.
Well, I'm like Charles. I've worked for a different couple vending companies, and compared to this one, this is more family company. Like you said, I started with your grandfather. I worked with your dad. I worked for your dad. Now I work for you. It's a family company. Some of the other companies, it's a lot different brand than this company also.
Well, one of the things that I think that is so special about this place, and y'all can chime in, is that, like you said, it is a family-owned business, but there's a lot of family-owned businesses who strive to be run like a corporate business. And we kind of go in the opposite direction of that, of where we still operate off of a family dynamic. We take care of each other. Obviously, you wouldn't work for somebody for over 40 years if you didn't like what you were doing. I talked to, when I was interviewing Dwayne and Jesus, Dwayne said he hadn't worked a day. He hadn't worked a day here that he's worked here because you just come in and, we're a part of each other's lives. We spend more time with each other most of the time than we spend with our own families. And, that's one of the things that I'm so thankful of is the dynamic that we have here is so good and so much like a family that it makes the job a little more enjoyable because we know everything about everybody. We cut up and tell stories and recount stories. Junior, you have some of the best ones.
We don't know no stories about Junior.
Junior has some of the best legends. I'm not gonna get into any of them. If you ever see him, ask him about some of the legends that Junior has from the old days. But that's one of the things that makes my job so much easier is getting to work in a dynamic that is family first. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why we've been so successful is that we kind of, when you come in, you're treated that way.
Well, there's one story I will tell that it probably wasn't there with Charles. When the gentleman rode with me for 2 days on my route, then he gave me a book showing me where the stops were at. We pulled up to one stop and he said, look, this lady's cow is going to be behind the counter with her. Don't say nothing. Don't stare at it. Do not, I thought he was BSing me. So we went up in there and the lady actually had a cow behind the counter in what she was calling her store.
Wasn't it a house?
Yeah, it was a house.
That's wild.
Junior, where was that at? Picayune or?
On 53 going up to Popsville.
Oh, okay. What store was that?
No, 603. I'm sorry. It was a house, Charles. I couldn't even tell you the name of it. I don't even know if we put a name on the ticket. We just went in there and sold the 2 cases of 12-ounce bottles.
Well, there was a store in Pascagoula that had a goat in his business, and the goat used to sit underneath the counter with him, and it looked like a dog. And the first couple of times I thought it was a dog, but come to find out it was a dang goat.
Their story could be told about this business, believe it or not.
Absolutely. I mean, we could, Junior and I were talking yesterday, and if we wrote down all these things, all these tales and times we've been in customers and business, because people don't realize, if you have a Pepsi uniform on, you can pretty much get in anywhere. Because they don't want to get interfere with you having to deliver it. It could be a vending machine in a place where they build drones in Moss Point, or it could be a house in Picayune that a cow's behind the counter. It's very interesting with the things that you see, like, route guys coming in, finding ducks on the side of the road, and then they pull in the warehouse and the guy's a duck in his cab. And you're like, why is that duck in your cab? And he's like, it's my duck now. It's lots of stories and times that can be discussed when it comes to this business. So, Charles,
Yes.
let me ask you a question. So Charles's position with the company is he's a large format area manager, which means he is over all of our grocery stores, anything that's a big box store, grocery store, Sam's, that kind of thing. So, Charles, what do you think has been the biggest challenge to your position over the last 20 years compared to how it used to be, where you only had about a handful of Walmarts? What do you think the biggest challenge has been?
Well, being an older person, it's the technology.
Yeah.
I grew with I know the business on the old scale, and I have enough knowledge to know that to keep up with it, you got to keep up with the technology. So the technologies has been the biggest thing with the internet and just how to do.
Yeah, like the Vault app, and all this
apps,
yeah,
all the new things. Used to be you went in there and you sold the display with, you had things you could give away. You had a relationship with store managers, and they could work with, if they liked you, they could work with you. Nowadays, everything's got to be done by corporate. So the fun part of used to going in there and BSing with people and getting things, displays back and forth, is not like that no more. Everything is corporate driven. Everything comes down from the top to the bottom. So that's what really has changed in the larger format stores and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Junior, what do you think? Junior is our key account manager and reset supervisor right now. He ran small format he was a small format area manager for years and years and years. So he was mainly over the pre-sellers and the supervisors over the pre-sale delivery team. But as far as small format goes, Junior, what do you think the biggest challenge nowadays is?
What Charles said is partially right, but in the small stores, you still got to go in and talk to the owners, talk to the managers. Any corporate store, you might can get a little bit out of them, but all the independents, the mom and pops and stuff like that, you can go in there and talk to them, place coolers and sell drinks, but it's still a hard business. You know what I mean? You can still do it in some of the smaller stores.
Yeah.
And all the convenience stores, but it's not like, but a lot of them, no, this is the way it's got to be. This is the way it's got to be.
Yeah, you're following a playbook instead of being able to kind of manifest your own destiny in there.
Yeah, well, we've got fortunate enough over the last few years, get several contracts. And when I say contracts, that's them doing business with us. Coke goes in there and they want the whole store, and people's getting tired of it. But so that's why if you go stay on them enough that you can get some business out of them. It's not like a Walmart where everything's got to go through corporate.
Right.
So that's different than what Charles do.
The technology behind it, man, is just, I think a lot of it helps and a lot of it hurts. There are some things, the fact that we're even able to right now get on this call and this podcast is kind of a testament to something that I think is utilized, but I think a lot of it kind of hinders the process of going in and being able to sell the way that we used to. So let me change the subject a little bit. What do you think that if someone was to come into the company, right? So we get a new hire, what do you think that 2 or 3 traits of that person that you see in them that they'd have to kind of stay with it? Because the new generation coming up, the Gen Zs, it's a different kind of human. So what do you think those people or someone who is hired in would have to have, traits they'd have to have, 2 or 3 of them to make them successful in this business?
Well, when you're doing the interview, they got it. You could tell if they're going to be a people person or not. This is still a people business.
Yeah.
And you also can tell if a man tells me he's going to be with this company the rest of his life, he ain't going to last over 3 weeks.
That's true. That is kind of like the That is kind of the kiss of death, is when they're automatically saying, hey, man, I love this company. I'm never leaving. That guy's already looking for a job.
Like we did some interviews and you got to have Class D. Guy wanted to work so bad, he said, I'll be back tomorrow with it. He went and got it that day and came back. We hired him. The man wanted to work.
Right.
It's you got to.
Charles, what do you think, man?
There's several things nowadays. For one thing, even wanting to come to work and spending the time that you have to spend in this business. When me and Junior was growing up, you used to easy 12-hour days. I mean, that's an easy day. A hard day, probably 14 hours. But nowadays, if you get them to work over 8, you done got something. So I think it's with people nowadays is getting them to want to come to work, communication.
Yes.
A lot of communication, because a lot of people don't want to communicate no more. They don't want to talk. They want to text. And in this business, you still need to be able to go to somebody and talk to them face to face. And they looking you in the eye and telling you, you're looking at them and you're looking and back and forth. So that's really what I think. I got a good one. Mordia is a prime example.
Yep, Mordia Thomas. Shout out to Mordia. He when I first started in the bulk department, when I was probably about 17, 18, I was under Mordia, and he basically taught me the art of merchandising. And it was basically you find out who the decision makers are, and then you attach yourselves to them and start BSing with them to the point to where they feel comfortable with you. And then once they feel a little comfortable with you, you can start selling some stuff in. I think getting that comfort level with this new generation coming in, they're so timid when it comes to authority figures that they get kind of gun shy, where they think, oh, I'm going to get turned down. Well, yeah, you might get turned down, but you're also going to be able to utilize that turn down and maybe have 2 or 3 options in your back pocket. And so if they turn you down on the one you want, you have another one loaded that you can say, all right, I understand that you don't want it over there, but what about this spot right here? And that second spot could be the one you really want, And I learned that from Morty. And, it takes you got to have a little bit of a thick skin, and that doesn't happen overnight. You got to build that up.
That's definitely a thing you grow into. Sometimes if you come in timid, then they're going to eat you up.
They can smell it.
Yeah. But also in time, you also learn to grow that. And that's the difference in people that stay in the business and people that get out of the business. The person that can learn from what they see and do, and they say, okay, that didn't work. Let me go in and try this and then see if that works. But it's the person that's willing to keep on trying is the ones that are going to more stay with you than the ones that are tried it once and it didn't work, so I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Between you two guys, I worked underneath both of y'all for a few years. And I remember when I first started working under Charles, one of my jobs was to go out to Keesler, and I pulled the commissary every day. And I was very, 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 very slow. And speed doesn't happen overnight when it comes to this business. I was just trying to make sure that if someone walked in behind me, that everything was turned and nice and all that. And sometimes you can't make it like that. So Charles taught me a lot when it came to merchandising and looking at what to look at, making sure price points were on there. Ordering is a big deal in your department, Charles, and learning how to order, especially with the amount of packages throwing Gatorade on top of it. That's one of the most difficult things to order, especially for a weekend. Talk a little bit about the process of what it would take and what it takes to actually order correctly for these accounts. Because, we're talking about 400 different packages going into one stop.
Well, it's several different things. You always got to look at your package, and it's per store, of course. You go in and you look at it. I always like to use Walmart as an example because that's our number one customer. But you always want to go in there, and nowadays you don't have the back stock like you used to. So you got to make sure everything you bring in is packages that you're going to sell over the weekend. So I always try to train it to you take your main packages, the ones that are on sale, make sure you got extra on them, and then always use your core to keep your back stock full.
And by core listener, he's talking about Pepsi, Pepsi, Dew, Diet Dew, Pepsi Zero, Sierra Mist. Your main CSD flavors.
Yes. And it's changed a lot compared to old days. But yeah, that's basically what I always like to do. And then make sure you got enough 20 ounces to hold you for the weekend. It's kind of hard to explain how to do it unless you go out there and do it and show people.
Yeah, each store is different.
Each store is different, and each person is different on how they do order and how they think about ordering.
The rule of thumb is, though, you don't want to under order. It's better to over order a little than under order, honestly.
Yes, all the time.
Junior, what do you think, as far as all the times and years that you've been with the company, what do you think one or two of your favorite memories of this company are?
When we won Baller of the Year,
There we go.
that was a great thing for everybody, all your employees, everything.
So you think that was a hell of a time when we went down to Orlando. So what Junior's describing is, in 2014, we were nominated for the #1 Pepsi bottler in North America. So that includes Canada and the United States. And we actually won. A small Pepsi distributor in South Mississippi was the #1 bottler in North America. And that is probably one of the best memories I would agree with as well, Junior.
Well, starting out, there was a thing, Mississippi Ballers Association, whichever baller, around here we used to meet and everything like that. And we won a couple things with them, but actually going out to the stores, talking to people, I still enjoy doing that. I really do. So I guess that's why I've been in this business so long.
You got a knack. You got a knack for it.
I enjoy doing that. But yeah, I mean, look how many family things that we have done in all these years, Andrew.
I know it's been a lot of fun.
All of us get together and go play golf one day.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Charles, what do you think, man? What do you think your favorite memory of working at Allen Beverages has been?
I got to agree with Junior on it. Is the bottle of the year thing. Us getting it ready was it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun because all the stuff we had to do. I know we bicker a lot sometimes, but at the end of the day, we knew what had to be done and we got it all done. And that presentation that we did with, what was his name?
Mario Mercurio.
Was awesome. I think we did an awesome job. Everybody did a good job.
Well, shout out to Brett Hollyfield because he was kind of the man behind the scenes of kind of giving us some inside information and tips and helping us with, products that we really need to showcase. Make sure we have this, make sure we have that, make sure that, we pick the right stops, we doctor up everything properly. And I was I puffed my chest out pretty big that day, knowing how bad we were killing it, because we went to about 6 or 7 separate stops and every single one of them looked perfect. And a lot of that had to do with the hard work that our crew put together. I was running the print shop at the time, so I had to print all those signs for you, Charles, that I didn't really necessarily want to print. Something about that print shop, man. Something about that print shop. Get in there. You don't want to print anything. But I think that was a really special moment, and the fact that we won, I know it meant a lot to my dad, and it would have meant a hell of a lot to my granddad to know that we were able to accomplish that. And we got nominated again about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to also say. It made your dad proud too,
Oh, absolutely.
That picture of you, him and Andre out there.
Oh yeah. Speaking to him, what was your favorite? What do you think your favorite memory of my dad would be that y'all had with each other?
My favorite memory of him is he used to come in and it was so funny because he'd come in my office and he'd just sit down and say, "What you up to?" "Oh, not much. How's Alice doing?" "Oh, she's doing good." We'd go talk about stuff but he was just one of those guys that you could talk to without feeling scared or nervous or.
Yeah.
He was just like if there's an issue came up. I remember this one time he told me there was a situation where we had a problem, and he said, it's okay to it's okay to make a mistake. He said the trick of it is to never make that mistake twice. I said, yeah, you're right, exactly. That's something I remember from the time it happened, which probably, what was it, probably 10 years ago, maybe even more. And he was just one of those guys that you could talk to.
Yeah, he didn't let the idea of himself get in the way of having a conversation with somebody.
Oh no, he come right out there and start chit chatting with you in a minute.
Yeah, he was the same. He was kind of the same with everybody.
Yeah, he was.
What about you, JR?
Like I said, Andrew, I used to ride on trucks with the band. Me and him always was talking and doing things. So, I mean, he always treated you well. Like Charles said, he'd come in, sit down, talk to you, and when he wasn't smoking, he'd walk by me and reach in your pocket. I don't smoke, by the way, and grab a cigarette from me, when I was smoking back then and stuff like that. He was like we are.
Yeah.
Andrew, really was. He's down there. And like I said, I seen a man get mad at me over something silly. A mistake, he told me before, he said, Junior, mistake happens. But when it's something silly, he didn't like that at all. And like Charles said, he don't do it again. You know what I mean? No, he was a good man. He was like your grandfather,
Yeah.
He did a lot, honestly and truly. I could see a lot of things in him. He did a lot of things that your grandfather does or did.
Yeah, I like one of my favorite stories about y'all running a route up there, and I'm going to put this out there because I don't think anybody can do anything or convict anyone for this. But that time that y'all were in the rain and you're in Wiggins and you're in a truck, and I think he accidentally rear-ended somebody, a parked car, and
Forward-ended him. I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, he accidentally clipped the back of someone's car in the rain. I think the car was parked and someone was inside, and he was like, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and try to leave this. He's like, just don't say anything, Junior. And you did. You held on to that for about 30 years.
Yeah, well, it wasn't no big din or nothing like that. You know what I mean? It just, like I said, he was human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Well,
I think the funniest one is the Christmas party when Marty had told me.
Oh, with Marty?
That's God. I mean, I don't know how to describe how hilarious that story is, but we used to do a Christmas party every year, and my dad would put on his red sweater, and we would gather up all the employees, and we'd cook everybody a steak dinner. We'd have sides and salads and everything, and T-bone steaks, and we'd hand out Christmas bonuses. So you have a room full of about 95 people, and my dad would get up there and call out everybody's name, and our guy Mortia Thomas that we just brought up. He always did like an impromptu speech. And so at this particular dinner, this is my grandma was there. That's, that's Margaret Allen. And so she was sitting at the table. She's probably in her 90s. She was a little hard of hearing, but to describe it, Morty is probably around 5'4". He's a tiny little guy, and he's a black guy, and he's one of the funniest, greatest human beings on the planet. And he went up and he said, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I just want to talk to my mama last Thursday, and he's holding my dad like they're hugging each other, half hugging each other in front of the whole company. So I talked to my mama last Thursday, and she confirmed that Drew Allen is in fact my daddy. And the place erupted. It took about 4 minutes to calm everybody down. And my grandma was sitting next to her. She goes, "What did he say?"
Your grandma. And
she didn't hear.
Turned red as the shirt.
Yeah, my dad. He wasn't one to be speechless, but at that point in his life, he'd had nothing to say. He was just laughing so much, man. And it's moments like that you look back on and you think, man, that was a funny, hilarious, completely off the cuff. Nobody knew that was coming. But that's been one of the ones for the books, man.
Well, we back then, and Andrew, we did so much with your dad, Charles, huh? We'd go play golf and play in golf tournaments.
Yeah.
Go play in the semi-pro tournaments, with him, me and Eddie and other people and stuff like that. He was a good man to work for too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, his ideology is kind of the same as mine. Is my job, and my job is to take care of the people who work for this company, and y'all's job is to take care of the company. And if we just keep on down that road, everybody's going to be okay. So, well, guys, I want to thank y'all for being on here, and taking the time. I know that this isn't exactly y'all's cup of tea, but I want to thank y'all for all the years and leadership that you guys have given this company, and effort and time that you put in to make this company what it is, and just for showing me a lot of how to actually be a part of the soft drink business. You two have taught me more than y'all will ever know as far as learning the business, as far as what not to do, as far as bouncing ideas off of y'all. And I just really appreciate the effort and the time and the tenure that you guys have put in.
Well, we appreciate you. I'd like to do one shout out. I don't know if I should or not. It don't really pertain to it, but I want to thank this company for giving me the best thing that ever happened to me. And that was my wife. Oh,
that's Cindy Graves. I'm going to try to get her on here. Cindy has been an integral part. She's accounts payable. Accounts receivable, excuse me. She's AR, and she's been with the company almost as long as Junior has. And she's highly integral to what we do here. So yes, no, I totally agree. And I think that she is the best thing that's ever happened to you, not vice versa.
And I want to throw in something here. There's a policy ever changes where you're not allowed to have a wife and a husband combination. It was nice working with you, Junior.
I know. That's what everybody tells me.
If one's got to go, we know
one's got to go, Jubog. It was you.
All right. I appreciate everything, Andrew.
Absolutely, fellas.
I thank you, too. I enjoy working here.
Yep. And this is, I don't know if anybody knows, but this is going to be Charles's last hoorah this year, man. He's planning on retiring in December. So if anybody listening to this needs anything out of Charles, you better get to him quick.
You ain't kidding.
I don't believe it. Just saying.
So thanks again, fellas, just for everything, for just being able to depend upon y'all to handle it, not having to ask any questions. And you make my job a lot easier.
Well, appreciate it. We enjoy it.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode of Bottled Up. Thank you to our incredible guests, Charles Duggan and Junior Graves, for sharing their invaluable insights and heartwarming stories from decades at Allen Beverages and the soft drink industry. As you all just heard, both Charles and Junior embody the spirit of dedication, innovation, and family that Allen Beverages stands for. Their rich experiences and personal anecdotes highlight not just the challenges, but also the joys of working in this ever-changing industry. Plus, I want to give a heartfelt shout-out to all the hardworking employees in our company and our beverage partners. Until next time, keep the passion alive, stay connected, and always keep your bottles up and spirits higher. And lastly, a big thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in to Bottled Up, where we are all about uncorking the stories that shape our Mississippi coastal home. And remember to always support our local businesses, restaurants, and attractions. Cheers. Thanks for listening to the Bottled Up Podcast. Want us to deliver this show to your email inbox as they drop? Want to tell us about how you like the show? Or do you want to tell us about a Gulf Coast business or restaurant that you'd like for us to spotlight in any upcoming episodes? Email Morgan Wheeler at mwheeler, MWHEELER @abevinc.com. That's ABEVINC.com. Want to know more about Allen Beverages and how we work with our clients, partners, and vendors? Check out allenbeverages.com. This show was edited and produced by Johnny Gwynn and Deep Fried Studios.